Now, when you're doing this part here, make sure you stay away from the bottom of the jacket hem. Why? Because you have to work on that later on. You could do all of this. Okay, you can do all this. Again, stay away from the edge of the facing. Oh, I can't see this damn thing. Okay. I would have used yellow thread. Okay, don't use like red thread because it might bleed, or navy or black. But you could use yellow or tan if you have a light lining. Light colored lining, that is. And you know, I'm not trying to match the seam allowances of the lining with the seam allowance of the jacket, because we've been working on this jacket constantly, and you know everything's going to be shifting anyway, so they're not really going to match. Now, I'm sort of like staying away from the hem because I could work here later on, okay? Pat everything down. Make sure your pocket bag is nice and flat. The hem of the lining is done exactly the same as the sleeve, okay? And I do have a spool of yellow thread for that purpose. When I'm doing, I just forgot. This fabric is very, very thick, but you can still work with it. Imagine making a coat. Now, one of the things that you do is that you don't have to do it now until you sew the edge of the lining onto your facing, okay? Is that the hem, when you cut your lining at the hem, you cut your lining, undo that there, no, I pin.
There's a pin.
The lining is cut at the hem, ½ inch below the jacket edge, okay? I'm not going to do the whole thing because this fabric frays a lot, all right? It's ½ inch below, okay? Now, the hem is also done exactly the same way we did the sleeve, where we fold up, we put pins, open it, and then slip stitch the lining onto the hem, okay? But make sure you have your pleat there, okay? Now, you're going to do the edge of the jacket. And it's always best to take a ruler. Do you have a ruler?
This one.
Because you don't want to sew this down onto the hymo, especially when you're sewing the lining. You're sewing the lining onto the facing, but not onto the hymo. You might go through and through. So the best thing to do is just to put a ruler there and pins. And a pin here so that you don't move the facing out of the way. Okay, now, again, I said we were going to cut the facing down a little because I can feel the edge of the lining, and I have I have almost 1.5 inches, and I don't need that much, okay? I'm not going to cut it right now because I just want you to see how it's finished. You could either slip stitch so that you don't see the stitch, now remember, this was done so that the trim shows. And remember, you're only sewing the lining onto the tape plus the facing. Over here, you have to put this in here so that you don't go through and through to the other side and catch the whole thing onto the hymo. Because then we have to cut it up, and guess what? It's going to fall apart. This and this will fall apart. Okay, so you have to have the ruler here in order to be able to sew this onto this. Okay? Now, I'm just going to finish pinning this all the way to the bottom. There's two ways of doing this. You could have just fold it, press it lightly with the iron, and then unpin it and then cut away the excess. So you could do it two ways, okay? And that's the way I'm doing it right now. I'm just going to fold and cut away the excess. Any questions so far? Huh?
Just lazy.
No? Okay. Again, remember, when you're ready for the hem, you're going to stop sewing here 3/4 of an inch from the hem down, the lining. Then, I'm just going to put a pin there. I hope you could all see. Then this will get turned in after it's trimmed and everything. Remember, this goes in like this to meet the 3/4 inch basting, and you pick this up and you sew the lining onto your hem. Got it? Okay, now I'm going to see if I can start one right now. First I want to press this so I can open it again and then cut away the excess that I don't need, okay? Alright, that's it.